thinking about different tasks, to suppliers, and by extension the procurement function. They rarely mention the work of the CPO in shareholder meetings or on earnings calls with analysts. Indeed, according to research by Harvard Business School's Michael Porter and Nitin Noria, CEOs spend just 1% of their time with suppliers. Given that spending on suppliers, the job of procurement, accounts for more than half of a typical company's total budget, this makes no sense. In effect, it means that CEOs spend next to no time either thinking about or being actively involved in how their companies spend more than half of their budgets. That's a mismatch with potentially existential consequences for companies. The CPO and the procurement function are marginalized because procurement is a deeply misunderstood corporate capability. In most companies, the principal task of the CPO and their team is to purchase goods and services from suppliers for the lowest price. Over the years, CEOs trying to save money and drive both increased profits and total shareholder returns have instructed their CPOs to find less expensive vendors for raw materials, core components, and other production inputs, as well as for services such as IT maintenance, accounting, and legal advice. As a result, procurement has become associated with a narrow, restricted interpretation that has left CEOs blind to its phenomenal potential. In our view, however, the CPO and the procurement function, by virtue of the fact that they own the corporate relationship with suppliers, should be positioned at the heart of a company. They are the CEO's secret keys to success in troubled times, and long after, too. Even before the global crisis triggered by COVID-19, the job of leading a company was challenging. Globalization was stalling, new digital technologies were disrupting business practices, and seismic but slow-moving social and political changes, including aging populations, increasing inequality, the rise of China, and the development of Africa, were beginning to have a far-reaching impact. Now the job is tougher than ever. In the first quarter of 2020, as governments imposed pandemic-related lockdowns and companies were forced to close factories, The Economist opined that the epidemic will put the question of supply chain management squarely on the desks of CEOs. In subsequent months, however, the situation worsened. Companies had to deal with volatile swings in consumer demand. The global airline industry was all but grounded. Shipping was severely disrupted, as labor shortages left container vessels unable to unload their cargo. And the automotive industry was halted by a semiconductor famine caused by factory shutdowns in Asia. Manufacturers were obliged to cancel their plans to build 10 million cars during the course of 2021. Indeed, in its briefing room blog, the White House noted that the paucity of semiconductors was not only affecting the automotive industry, but also dragging down the U.S. economy and could cut nearly a percentage point from GDP growth. That a shortage of so ordinarily commonplace a piece of technology could have such a devastating effect alarmed politicians and policymakers. So great was the fear that supply issues could leave a permanent scar on America's future that President Joe Biden ordered a 100-day review of the resilience of the country's supply chains for select critical products, not only semiconductors, but also batteries for electric vehicles, active ingredients for pharmaceuticals, and critical minerals and specialty packaging. Announcing the measure, Biden said, "The American people should never face shortages in the goods and services they rely on, whether that's their car or their prescription medicines or the food at the local grocery store." Amid this turmoil, CEOs and their leadership teams have been expected to do the seemingly impossible: cut costs while improving the quality of their company's goods and services, and while making their businesses faster, more innovative, and more sustainable. They will come under increasing pressure not only to build back as things were before, but to build back better. As the New Yorker noted, supply chain trouble suggests that something is off with the way we're operating in the world, adding that short-term fixes will be neither satisfactory nor sufficient. The real challenge, when it comes to thinking about supply chains, isn't making sure that a container ship is unloaded. It's